Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here. This is going to be my Dragonflight pre-patch Affliction Warlock DPS, I guess, overview slash guide, if you can really call it that. And it will be covering Covenants for the next month or so, Legendaries, new talent builds, rotations, and a couple other things along the way, highlighting the big changes heading into Dragonflight pre-patch. Now, Blizzard has indeed clarified that Legendaries will be working in pre-patch, but there will not be any double dipping with talents. For example, for Affliction, Wrath of Consumption is a legendary and a talent. If you take both, the talent will override the legendary, and the legendary will not work. So that eliminates a handful of them, like Synergy, like Wrath of Consumption. So that could shake things up a little bit. Tier Gear is totally broken, will not work, and Covenant effects will work in Shadowlands, but Affliction is in a pretty interesting spot because Unity Legendary does work, and we have Soul Rot in our talent tree. So the cool thing about AF, I saved this guide for last, is that you can actually double dip in Necrolord and Night Fae Unity play. We'll get to that in a little while, but yes, we're gonna be covering talent builds, covenants, legendaries, and a few unique interactions along the way. A couple things we get too far in the video. Number one, huge shout out to my patrons. Thank you for supporting on Patreon, guys, a million times. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here as well as down in the video description below. Heads up, the Warlock Dragonflight beta spreadsheet is indeed now live. The tier 3 Felguard rank or higher on Patreon does get early access to that. It should be going live in a couple weeks, like public in a couple weeks as well, for those that were asking about it. And number two, any week wars you see in the video, the central one here, for example, is available for free in my Wago if you want. It's linked to my Discord down below. Just hop in there and you should find a link to Wago, and it should be there. So all that being said, let's just jump right into it, starting off with Covenants and Legendaries. So when it comes to Covenants, Legendaries, and Conduits for Affliction Warlock and pre-patch, you have two real options Covenant-wise. One is Night Fae, which we've played for, I'd say, the majority of Shadowlands. The other is Necrolord. Now, Necrolord has been played for, it was played a little bit during PTR testing and things for certain patches, with a lot of hype being behind Drain Soul, decimating bolt damage amps with Malefic Wrath, and things like that. Currently, from what I've seen on PTR, is that Necrolord Decimating Bolt is supposed to empower one charge of Drain Soul, but yesterday it was empowering 3 charges of Drain Soul. So I'll look at that in a little bit here rotationally. I don't know if it's still working or not. If it is, that makes Necrolord much more exciting. If it's not and it's fixed, we'll figure it out in the rotation section. But either way, with Necrolord, the other cool thing is that you get Decimating Bolt. Unity, your legendary for Covenants, is still working. You get Decimating Bolt, but you also have the option of playing Soul Rot, potentially, if you want, in your final talent row here. Now, there's still some debate on what's better, because we only have 5 capstone talent points. But if you simply take Soul Rot, you will indeed get the Night Fae Decaying Soul Satchel effect if you're playing Unity on top of the Necrolord Decimating Bolt Shard of Annihilation effect. So there's a bit of overlap and some cool synergy there. Besides that, so legendary-wise, there's not a whole lot of options here. Keep in mind, legendaries that overlap with talents will not double dip in pre-patch. So Wrath of Consumption is a talent. Sacrolash is a talent. Synergy is a talent. Wilfrid's is a talent, but it's not good. Your only real options here, at least I feel, are Malefic Wrath and Agony. This is a talent too, but it's whatever. Malefic Wrath and Perpetual Agony of Azakir. Now, if you're not playing, let's say, Synergy or Clash Tree, whatever, you can play this. If you're not playing Wrath of Consumption in your spec tree, for whatever reason, if you're not in certain builds, you can play that as well. Keep that in mind, because if you're not doubling up, on both effects, you still can get value out of the legendary. But Malefic Wrath has been our go-to in single target for a while, and it's been relatively close between like Perpetual Agony, Wrath of Consumption, and Synergy, Mythic Plus, and AOE kind of settings. So if you're looking at playing single target AF in pre-patch, Malefic Wrath will be your most likely be your best option if you're down to maintain that Rapture buff kind of playstyle. Otherwise, if you're not doubling up on effects here or whatever, you can go with Wrath. For example, Mythic Plus. Synergy is probably going to be your de facto option in your Clash tree that low. But if you're doubling up on Wrath and Synergy, your best option is most likely just playing Perpetual Agony of Azakir. Now, Blizzard, I believe, has clarified that Conduits overlapping with talents will also not work. So that eliminates Withering Bolt, which we have right here. Our usual talent combination, or I guess Conduit combination, has typically been Withering Bolt, Malignancy, and Soul Eater. You can swap out Bolt for, either Rolling Agony or Corrupting Leer at this point. So chances are high you'll still play Soul Eater, Malignancy, and then probably Rolling Agony. Corrupting Leer, there is some relevancy with Corrupting Leer and Grim Reach, our Dark Lair Empowerment talent here. So that can be a bit of a shorter cooldown, and in the end, like, if you're in Mythic Plus, you can sort of decide if you want the Agony Duration Extension Conduit, or just Grim Reach for faster Dark Layers. With that being said, let's get into the talent builds. So when it comes to the class talent tree for Affliction Warlock, it's pretty simple and nearly the same thing as it is for Demo and Destruction. A point in Burning Rush, a point in Fell Domination, 2 points in Demon Skin, 2 points in Fell Armor, grabbing Coil here for the incap and healing if need be, Curses here, 1 Embrace, 1 Inspiration, 1 Minion, 1 Fortitude, and then I go Gateway and I go Sweet Souls here, which have like, you know, dual unlocks in basically every row here. For Shadow Fury, both being Dark Accord, Strength of Will, and Dark Pact here. Now, if you don't want Gateway, you can put it somewhere else, like if you need Banished, for example, but then you have the problem of like not having either Shadow Fury or this central node open, and the same goes for like Sweet Souls. They're both good. You can find use for Gateway in probably every setting, mostly. In Sweet Souls, just good in general, any kind of, you know, group content or even your own, you know, solo-based content, right? So once we get here, I'll typically grab Shadow Fury, going into, Strength of Will here, Dark Pact going into, Frequent Donor for reduced cooldown on Dark Pact. And then 2 points being left here, going into Lifeblood to unlock both these nodes here. And you have this node unlocked from here being Frequent Donor. So with 6 points left, I typically go with Soul Link, double Soul Conduit, double Synergy because of, just damage traits here, right? And with 1 point being left, I'll typically grab Inquisitor's Gaze or Summon Soulkeeper. It's worth mentioning, both these talents are incredibly undertuned. They do very little damage, but some damage is better than no damage. So we're grabbing Inquisitor's Gaze here in single target. Summon Soulkeeper is almost not even worth casting in AoE. It's nearly the same overall damage as just having the eyeball out most of the time. So I just pull the eyeball out and just set it and forget it for an hour. This is generally the build that I play, but if I need a banish effect or some other kind of utility effect, I'll just pull a point out of this and put it up here. Once we're at 70, we have 5 more talents. You can grab Soulburn easily, you can grab Fell Synergy, Profane Bargain, and you're good to go with 1 more floater point too, right? But at 60, if you need that banish or you want like, you know, Desperate Pact or Gorfiend's Resolve for whatever reason, you can pull a point from here. But besides that, you're making a choice of like, okay, do I take a point on a Soul Conduit or Synergy? So when it comes to the single target build of AF in pre-patch, I'm going to be playing the Malefic Wrath Legendary in most settings, and this is the build I'm going to start with. So we are indeed filling out the capstone Haunt into Seize Fatality into Haunted Sorrow here, grabbing our Dark Lair, obviously. Now, I have tested with both Creeping Death, Malefic Affliction, this row here with Dread Touch compared to this, and while they are pretty close in testing, I wouldn't bolt somebody for taking this playstyle. Haunt does increase Drain Soul damage, which increases, you know, even more with Malefic Wrath and other effects like that. So I've opted to go with Haunt and Haunted Soul, a very strong effect, giving 20% more dot damage and 10% more overall damage here if Haunt is active. Besides that, we have Dark Lair, 1 point here, 1 point in Soul Tap, Shadow's Embrace, Drain Soul, Siphon Life, Singularity, 2 points in ID, so you have these big IDs you'll dump every once in a while, Haunt's active. And besides that, 2 points in Sacrilash's Dark Strike. Now, it is worth mentioning, we are playing the Withering Soul, or sorry, Withering Bolt Conduit here, or Talent, I guess. It's a Conduit. Now, Talents and Conduits, I believe, are going to override one another in pre-patch. This is not confirmed yet. If it is, there's a world where you go like this, take no points in Withering Bolt, because the Conduit is not capped on damage. It says 20% per dot effect active. Where's the Conduit here, right? 20% per dot effect active. The talent, however, in Dragonflight has been capped at, 15% per dot, up to 45 max. So if you can avoid taking this Conduit, or this talent, I'm sorry, by putting a point, let's say, in Harvester of Souls, or a point in Sacrifice, you can do that. However, it's important to note as well that Sacrifice is currently bugged, we think, on PTR, probably in pre-patch as well. It should work with Synergy, but it's not currently. On retail, if you sack your pet now, you get the effects of Synergy, even with sack being a thing. It's not working now in pre-patch, or in PTR. So we'll see what happens in 12 hours from now, if it's working or not. I guess like 16, but this will be a bit of a, you have to just figure it out on your own kind of thing if it's working or not. But so, let's say sack's still broken. You could very well just skip Withering Bolt, go 2 points in Harvester, which is a terribly undertuned talent, but you can take it, and then go Dark Lair, Haunt, Seize Fatality, and Haunt the Soul through both Pandemic Invocation and Sacrilash's Dark Strike, foregoing the talent here, because the Conduit will give more raw dot value with Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, UA, Singularity, and Soul Rot, because you are playing Soul Rot being a Night Phase still, even though you're not in the actual talent. So, gotta see where that goes. We just don't know yet. I can't wait any longer to make the video. I'm assuming the Conduit, if it works, is better in the actual talent, and this is probably the build I'd look at. You can put 1 point here, 1 point here in sack if this is working, but yeah. So with that being said, let's take a look at this rotation for Night Fae, and then for Necrolord. Alrighty, so if you're playing Night Fae in the single target build, the opener is actually pretty simple. One thing I'll mention that I have a weak aura once again for soul tap here if you didn't see it already. This calculates if you can actually soul tap or not. So you have a soul leech shield on you. This weak aura will calculate if you can soul tap based on your soul leech absorption amount. So I soul tap, it changes to 1. It rounds down or rounds up. So I mean it was a red one, but if it's green, you can soul tap. This means you have 1.2 charges, tap again for a shard, and it will calculate based off your soul leech shield. Very cool. If you want it, it's in the Wago, !WA in Twitch chat or in my Discord. You can get a link to it. So, with that being said, let me actually move over here so it's not too loud. The opener for the single target build. I'm going to try and get back to 2 stacks of soul tap here. You can pre-soul tap before a boss is pulled to try and go in with 5 shards and then begin your typical opener. So let's say the boss is being pulled here in a second. We have 2 stacks of soul tap. We can just soul tap. We got a bug, but that's fine. We can soul tap. So you're going to precast your Haunt into Unstable Affliction, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, Drain Soul for 3 stacks of Shadow's Embrace, 2, 3, Phantom Singularity, Soul Rot, Trinket, Dark Glare, and begin Rapture spam. Rapture, Rapture, Rapture. Malefic Wrath is now active. You can drain a bunch here. Cast our Haunt to refresh Haunt again. And this is the big thing. You want to maintain Malefic Wrath while maintaining dots here. Refresh, refresh, refresh. And just casting Drain Lives. Drain Souls. Not Drain Life. And the big thing is, like, this will greatly increase your overall Drain Soul damage. I have a weak aura for this somewhere. I don't know where it's at this point. I'll find it somewhere. But the big thing, don't let Malefic Wrath drop. If you do, the effect's right here. If you do, you have to Rapture 3 times to get the effect back up again. And depending on shard count and things, it can be a little rough. I will say having Soul Tap makes that a lot easier. And for the most part, you're typically swimming in shards at this point. The big thing playing Night Fae, you will indeed hold your Phantom Singularity for your Soul Rot and Rapture during that. And also drain at the same time for big damage amps. If you're Necrolord, you cast Singularity on cooldown because you don't have Soul Rot to cast with that. So we're going to have it basically now. We'll refresh a bit. It's going to fall, but that's fine. We can just go PS. Should have haunted Haunt, PS, Soul Rot. Just Rapture 3 times to get the effect back up. 2, 3, you can drain. And the big thing here, refresh the Corruption. You can dump your Drain Life. Siphon Life, catch that. Refresh the buff again. And the big thing about this is just maintaining Malefic Wrath. Don't let dots fall. Maintain Malefic Wrath. Cast Raptures in your Rapture window. And that's pretty much the gist of it. You can see Drain Soul is a pretty large portion of our damage here, being about 32%. This dummy is indeed an Execute. Now, if you're looking to play a more Drain Soul based build, which is even more drain damage, Necrolord will be better in single target. It does cast things a bit differently, but it's still good overall. Let's take a look at that and see how that plays. Alrighty, so if you've opted to play Necrolord, Malefic Wrath Affliction in pre-patch for whatever reason, first of all, Godspeed and good luck. This rotation is an actual pain, but it is a bit better in single target, and that is due to Malefic Wrath, Decimating Bolt synergies, Drain Souls, all of that, and the fact that Drain Soul, you're currently getting 3 full Drain Soul effects from Decimating Bolt and not 1. So that was the way it was in Shadowlands beta. Decimating Bolt was always giving you 1 damage amp on, or it's giving you 1 Drain Soul damage amp ever since beta. They nerfed it from 3 to 1. It is giving you 3 in pre-patch, which means you want to set it up. You do not want to interrupt your Drain Souls that are buffed by Decimating Bolts nearly at all costs. If you have to, or if you're going to die, do it. Besides that, they do the majority of your damage. So you want to set them up properly and not interrupt them if possible. This rotation is very stationary and very tedious, but I'll do my best. We're also playing Malefic Wrath, so don't let the buff fall. The other thing is that you're casting your PS and your Decimating Bolt every 45 seconds and not a minute like Night Fae, so your Dark Glare is going to be... Your Dark Glare is basically like at 220 or so for the second one, because you're going to go like 10-ish seconds into the pull, PS Decimating Bolt, about 50-ish seconds, about a minute 40, and then about a minute, or I guess like 220. So you're going to push your Dark Glare back about 20-ish seconds. It shouldn't matter a whole lot in the long run. If it's too confusing, just hit it every minute, and that's fine. But yeah, so let's get into this. So you're playing Soul Tap. It's already going to bug out on us, but you can Soul Tap before the boss is pulled. It didn't bug, actually. It's very nice. So boss is being pulled. Pet's on aggressive. You can precast your Haunt here. Haunt, Unstable Affliction, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, drain the 3 stacks here. You'll go PS, Decimating Bolt, Trinket if you have one, Dark Glare, Rapture 3 times, 1, 2, 3 for 3 stacks of Malefic Wrath, Drain Soul. Refresh the Haunt, Rapture, Drain Soul. Don't interrupt the Drain Soul. I'll Rapture here to catch the buff, refresh dots here, Bang, bang, bang. Can UA, refresh Rapture again one more time here. Drain Soul. Do not interrupt the Drain Soul. They do, as you can see, the majority of your damage, because we're getting 3 Drain Souls being buffed by Shard of Annihilation, by other effects. It is the majority of your damage. And in about 10 seconds here, we're going to have another window based around that with Phantom Singularity and Decimating Bolt. Now, depending on Shard procs and things, the effect might fall. It shouldn't, but you want to make sure you have it active for these windows, being Malefic Wrath. Dot refresh. We can go PS, Decimating Bolt here. I'll Rapture, refresh the Agony briefly, Drain Soul, Rapture, Drain Soul. You can catch your dots here, catch his Corruption. If fell, that's fine. Refresh, catch your Haunt, your UA. I'm going to Rapture to maintain buff here if I can. Siphon Life, Drain Soul. You maintain, Drain Soul. And you can see how you really can't move at all with this rotation, because I totally forgot about my max ID stacks. I think I hit it right here. Catch your Drain Lives. This rotation is very, 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 very stationary. If you make one mistake, your damage is not anywhere near as good as it could be, but Drain Soul is a large portion of your damage. We're doing a lot more than we were as Night Fae. But once again, I mean, we're also an Execute here. It's cleaving 2 targets, but I would assume Necrolord AF is ahead of Night Fae in single target by a substantial margin. Drain Soul is 65% of my damage. It had a critical strike of 75k. That is also not a full Drain Soul. That is an individual tick of Drain Soul. My max Rapture was 17k. Yeah. So when it comes to AOE Mythic Plus talents for Affliction and pre-patch, this is the build where I'm going to start. Now, there's some what-ifs to this build, which we'll look at in a minute here. One thing I forgot to mention in the last build for single target is that if you're playing ID, you can opt into Grim Feast, which gives you a faster Drain Life cast. It does not increase the damage of ID. It ticks the same amount, but it drains much faster. And in Mythic Plus, with a lot going on and dots falling, I think this is worth taking over the Eyeball or over Soulkeeper. They're both very bad. I think this is a better quality of life increase, and to a similar extent, Accrued Vitality gives you just insane survivability with Drain Life and things. So anyways, getting into the build. So Seed of Corruption, so the Seeds, Xavian Teachings, 2 points in rather than Agony. Nightfall, Shadow's Embrace for more of a single target kind of damage profile. Drain Soul, Soul Tap, which we'll get into in a little bit here. Creeping Death, 1 point for faster dot ticks. 2 points in ID, 2 points in Soul Flame, which does a lot of damage currently. 2 points in Sacrilege for just corruption damage increase. The slow is sort of relevant at times, but just the damage increase is nice. Vile Taint, which also applies Agony now to every mob hit, up to 8, which is very, very strong in Mythic Plus. The profile feels so much better in Mythic Plus, now casting a Vile Taint to apply Agonies. Absolute Corruption, and I've opted for Dark Lair into Visionary into Grim Reach. This is currently bugged on beta. We'll see if it's working tomorrow, who knows. But having that Dark Lair, just AOE I-Beam profile every 2 minutes or shorter if you opt for the Corrupting Leer Conduit is pretty strong. It's fun, it's cool, it's exciting, and we do indeed still get Soul Rot being Night Fae. We get the full effect from Unity, like we said, with that, so this is sort of a free talent in a sense here, which is very nice. You could make a case for Haunted Soul Robe, but I think this is probably just better and more exciting and fun to play overall. It's pre-patch and probably just better overall in raw damage. Now, to a similar extent to the single target build, Withering Bolt is not taken here because the Conduit, if it works properly, should be better damage-wise. It's not capped at 3 dots. Now, this is a Mythic Plus setting, which means that you might not necessarily want it in the first place, but that's sort of up to you. Conduit-wise, I'd probably look at playing something along the lines of like Malignancy, Withering Bolt if you're not taking the actual talent, and then you can play Soul Eater, or you can play Corrupting Leer or Rolling Agony. With Vile Taint applying Agony, it is nice to have infinite duration on it, but I don't think rolling is necessarily needed. I'd probably start with something along the lines of like Focus Malignancy, Withering Bolt, and then probably Corrupting Leer, like Grim Reach damage. But Soul Eater's not too bad either. So up to you. You can experiment a bit if you want. If you just want to play Withering Bolt and not play, or play the talent, not worry about the Conduit, you can just take 2 points from, you can pull a point from, let's see, from ID and put it into Withering Bolt. More single target versus more like, I guess, just AoE kind of damage, with Soul Rot being an ability here too. But once again, if you can play the Conduit, I think playing the Conduit instead of the talent gives you a lot more damage by having access to like double 2 ID with Soul Rot. So I'm gonna start here. See where this goes. But I think this is probably one of the best builds, if not the best one out there. With that being said, let's look at it in AoE. Now, if you're looking to play Affliction in AoE or Mythic Plus or things like that in pre-patch, this is the opener you want to follow for the most part, and it's pretty similar to what you actually played well, I mean, even leading up to pre-patch, not a whole lot really changed with the build. You have ID, you are playing Soul Rot still. I am not playing the Agony Shard Gen Legendary here. I don't have it made, but it's the same thing. Just you'll have more shards, Rapture, or Seed more often. You're fine. So we have Soul Flame, which triggers when mobs die. We're playing Absolute Corruption. ID, you have Soul Tap again. Now, Soul Tap is pretty solid and plus. You should be casting Drain Soul when packs are dying to get shards anyways, and maintaining that UA for an effect as well. But you can Soul Tap heading from one pack to the next for 5 shards, basically guaranteed. And keep in mind, Vile Taint also applies Agony. So the opener is pretty simple and pretty exciting, pretty fast. So let's say we're going to another pack. We can Soul Tap the 5 shards here. It's bugged. That's fine. We can go to that. So we're going to precast a Seed when the tank's running in. Precast Seed. Go into this Vile Taint to apply Agonies. UA. Soul Rot. Trinket if need be. Cast your Dark Lair and just begin Seed spam. You're going to spam Seeds. They're going to explode. They're going to do damage. You have DSS from your Legendary here. This is only 3 targets as well. You can have 4 for DSS, and it will bring even more of just a larger haste crit amp. And look at our overall damage here. There's Seed. Look at Grim Reach. That's our Dark Lair. Dark Lair's doing a lot of damage. It's 20%. He's active for literally half a minute as well. Make sure to catch your Agonies before they fall with, you know, Agony refreshes and things like that. Catch your UA before it falls. And the one thing here, you can indeed Vile Taint on every half a minute, but you'll have to catch your Agonies one time, catch being refresh in between each Vile Taint casts. So I can cast it here to basically catch them all, but you have to cast it one time. You have to refresh Agony one time in between each Vile Taint cast if you're not playing Rolling Agony the Conduit. Besides that, maintain UA, Corruption's permanent, maintain Agonies, and the one final thing is that you're going to be spamming Seed a bunch, all of that, but you're going to have ID, your talent here, which gives you big drain life stacks. So you're going to have to try and figure out and leverage, do I want to have a single target drain life if I'm capped on stacks really early on and I don't have Soul Rot to have it fork? Because like this person's doing here, if you cast Soul Rot, it'll drain life on every single target that has Soul Rot on it for the actual duration of Soul Rot. If you're at a point in combat, though, where you have a max stack of ID and you're way off of your Soul Rot by half a minute, you might just say, okay, I'm just going to cast a big drain life on one target, stack it again, and then have it for the next Soul Rot application. So it's up to you. Have to play with it a little bit, but the opener, precast Seed into a Vile Taint, into a UA, Soul Rot, Dark Lair if you got it, and just start spamming Seeds. And that's it for the most part. You can drain life on a target if you want to stack Shadow's Embrace on one for like funnel damage, but it's very similar to what AF has been doing for the past 3 patches. But with Vile Taint applying Agony, it feels even better. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. That should wrap it up. Hopefully it answered all the questions you might have had about Affliction Warlock in Dragonflight pre-patch. Nightface is looking strong, looking solid. I like Soul Shape, want to play with it a bit more. Necrolord looking very, very strong in single target, but the rotation is very, very, very stationary. You have to move if you let your Rapture drop or interrupt the Drain Soul. It hurts a lot. I think it's sort of similar to like the Demon Bolt builds of Demonology we've seen for a long time, which theoretically sim higher, but nobody plays them because they're just so tedious and monotonous, and one mistake means just no damage. We'll see where it goes. This build has been played in certain spots. I played it on Ryglan a few months ago, the Necrolord like Drain Soul build. But once again, that's with 1 Drain Soul empowerment, not 3. So it could be a bug. They might fix it before tomorrow. We'll see what happens. I don't know. All these guides are subject to change. If they do change, I'll try and post it down below in the comment section if anything big happens. But yeah, that should be it. So I'm pumped. AF looks good. I saved it for last because I wanted to see how it was with, like, you know, maybe some bugs being fixed, and they didn't really change much. It might even be a bug. Maybe it's just a, hey, have fun kind of thing. It's pre-patch. I'm down for some fun. So if I missed any builds or anything in this video you guys think I should have talked about, leave it down below in the comment section, and I will be sure to get back to you. Any weak orders or add-ons, once again, link down below to my Twitch or my Discord, where you can find them all for free. And yeah, I want to give one huge shout out to my patrons as well before we end the video. Thank you for all support on Patreon, guys, a million times. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, should be a link up here as well as down below. And while you're down there, hit the like and sub buttons because it helps out a ton. With all that being said, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.